the runaway bride. The bells of St. Margaret's Cathedral echoed across the city of Ashcroft, but Isabella Hartwell felt no joy in their sound. While the guests admired the flowers and musicians prepared for the grand ceremony, the young woman sat in front of her mirror with tears gathering in her eyes. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Instead, it felt like a prison sentence. At 22, Isabella had learned that in noble society, love rarely mattered. Her father, Lord Hartwell, had arranged her marriage to Lord Cedric Blackwood, a wealthy and influential man nearly twice her age. To the outside world, Cedric appeared charming and respectable. But Isabella knew the truth. He was cruel. She had witnessed his temper many times during their engagement. Servants trembled in his presence. Even his own younger brother avoided him whenever possible. Yet her father ignored every warning. "Love comes later," he would always say. But Isabella did not believe that love could grow from fear. As the maid finished arranging the pearls in her hair, Isabella stared at her reflection. The white gown, the expensive jewels, the perfect appearance. Everything looked beautiful. Everything except the sadness in her eyes. "Lady Isabella," her maid Emily whispered softly. "Everyone is waiting." Isabella stood slowly. "Emily," she asked quietly, "if you had one chance to change your life forever, would you take it?" The maid looked surprised. "I believe I would, my lady." Those words settled something inside Isabella's heart. She had made her decision. 10 minutes later, while the guests gathered inside the cathedral, Isabella quietly slipped through the servants' corridor. Her heavy dress made running difficult, but desperation gave her strength. She removed the veil and clutched the skirts with both hands as she hurried toward the back streets. Behind her, church bells continued ringing. Nobody noticed that the bride had disappeared. Not yet. Meanwhile, several miles away, the Duke of Ravensshire was preparing to leave Ashcroft. Alexander Whitmore, the 32-year-old Duke, was one of the most respected men in England. Tall, reserved, and known for his sharp mind, he had little interest in society's endless parties. After concluding business in Ashcroft, he intended to return to Ravensshire Manor before nightfall. "Everything packed?" he asked his loyal servant, Thomas. "Yes, your grace." "Good." Alexander entered the carriage without another word. His life was simple, peaceful, predictable. He preferred it that way. Little did he know that fate had entirely different plans. Back in Ashcroft, panic had erupted. "The bride is gone." Lord Hartwell turned pale. Cedric Blackwood's face twisted with rage. "Find her," he roared. "She belongs to me." Servants rushed in every direction. Guards searched the streets. But Isabella had already run farther than anyone expected. Breathing heavily, exhausted and frightened, she stumbled into the crowded market district. Rain clouds had gathered overhead. People hurried past her without paying attention. She had nowhere to go. No money. No plan. No future. Then she saw it. A black carriage standing near the road. Its driver had stepped away briefly. Without thinking, Isabella opened the door and climbed inside. She only intended to hide for a few minutes. Just enough to escape the search. She sat quietly in the corner, holding her breath. Moments later, the carriage began moving. Her eyes widened. No. Panic filled her chest. She reached for the handle, but fear stopped her. If she left now, Cedric's men might find her. Maybe she could wait. Just for a little while. Outside, rain started pouring. Inside the carriage, Isabella slowly drifted into an exhausted sleep. Hours passed. The city of Ashcroft disappeared behind them. The roads grew quieter. Night approached. Alexander Whitmore finally opened the documents he had ignored all afternoon. But before he could read a single page, something caught his attention. A sound. Soft breathing. His eyes narrowed. Slowly he looked across the carriage. And froze. Curled up on the opposite seat, still wearing a wedding gown and sleeping peacefully, was a young woman he had never seen before. Alexander blinked once. Then twice. For the first time in many years, the calm and unshakable Duke of Ravensshire found himself completely speechless. And as lightning illuminated the carriage windows, Isabella slowly opened her eyes, only to discover that she was staring directly into the eyes of one of the most powerful men in England. A stranger in the Duke's carriage. Isabella's heart nearly stopped. For one terrifying moment, she thought Lord Cedric had found her. But the man sitting opposite her was not Cedric. He was someone entirely different. Tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a dark coat that spoke of wealth and authority, the stranger had piercing gray eyes and an expression so calm that it almost frightened her more. Yet there was no anger in those eyes. Only confusion. and curiosity. Isabella immediately sat upright. Oh heavens! She nearly lost her balance as the carriage swayed. The man raised an eyebrow. I believe I should be the one saying that, he remarked quietly. His voice was deep and composed. Who are you? Isabella's cheeks turned pale. She couldn't breathe. She had hidden inside a stranger's carriage. Not for minutes, not even an hour, but for several hours. And now she was miles away from Ashcroft. The realization hit her like a wave. She covered her mouth in horror. Oh no. The gentleman studied her carefully. Judging by the wedding dress, I assume this situation is rather unusual. She looked toward the door. Could she jump? No. Outside, darkness covered the countryside. Rain still poured from the sky, and the carriage moved too quickly. There is nowhere for you to run, the man said calmly. Which leaves us with only one sensible option. He folded his hands. You explain why a bride appeared inside my carriage. Isabella swallowed nervously. Your carriage? The gentleman nodded. I am Alexander Whitmore. Her eyes widened. Even she recognized the name. The Duke of Ravensshire. One of the wealthiest and most powerful men in England. Everyone knew of him. Stories described him as cold, intelligent, and impossible to deceive. Suddenly her situation felt even worse. You are the Duke? I am. She closed her eyes. Wonderful. Out of all the carriages in England, she had hidden inside that of a duke. Fate clearly enjoyed mocking her. Alexander remained silent. He could see fear written across her face. But it wasn't the fear of being discovered by him. No. She seemed terrified of something else entirely. Miss, he prompted. Lady Isabella Hartwell. His expression changed slightly. The missing bride? Her head snapped upward. You know? The entire city knows. His voice remained steady. Lord Cedric Blackwood has practically declared war on Ashcroft in his attempt to find you. Isabella lowered her eyes. Alexander noticed the tears gathering there. Interesting. Most women would have panicked or tried to manipulate him. Instead, she simply looked exhausted. Did someone force you into this marriage? She remained silent. Lady Isabella. Still nothing. Then finally, yes. The answer was barely above a whisper. Alexander's eyes darkened. Did Lord Blackwood harm you? No. She quickly shook her head. He never struck me. But he frightened me. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. He treated servants cruelly. He insulted people. He would become angry over nothing. I knew that if I married him. Her voice broke. I would spend the rest of my life afraid. Alexander listened quietly. He wasn't a sentimental man. He had spent years handling estates, politics, and difficult negotiations. But something about this trembling young woman moved him. Perhaps it was because she wasn't asking him for anything. She wasn't begging. She wasn't seeking pity. She simply looked broken. You ran away, he said. Yes. And climbed into a random carriage? I thought I would hide for a few minutes. Despite the seriousness of the matter, Alexander almost smiled. That plan was remarkably terrible. To Isabella's surprise, a tiny laugh escaped her. Then she covered her mouth. Oh dear. Alexander blinked. He hadn't intended to make her laugh. In fact, he couldn't remember the last time someone had laughed in his presence. The carriage fell silent again. After several moments, Isabella whispered, Will you send me back? Alexander looked out the window. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Do you wish to return? No. Do you have relatives who can protect you? No. Money? She shook her head. Friends? No. Alexander sighed softly. This was becoming complicated. Very complicated. Because society had rules. And according to society, a duke traveling alone with an unmarried woman was already scandalous. Traveling with a runaway bride? That would become gossip for years. Thomas, his loyal servant, knocked on the carriage door. Your Grace. Yes. We'll arrive at Briarwood in shortly. Good. Alexander looked at Isabella. You need food and rest. But you are exhausted. I cannot burden you. You already have. Her eyes widened. Then unexpectedly he added, But I suppose there is no point complaining now. For the first time since fleeing Ashcroft, Isabella smiled. A genuine smile. And Alexander noticed something dangerous. She was beautiful. Not because of her dress. Not because of the pearls still tangled in her hair. But because her smile transformed her entire face. He immediately looked away. Beauty had never interested him. And marriage interested him even less. He had buried such dreams years ago. After all, love had once cost him everything. He had sworn never to repeat that mistake. Back in Ashcroft, Lord Cedric Blackwood stood in his mansion, fury burning inside him. A servant trembled before him. "We searched everywhere, my lord." Cedric smashed a glass against the wall. "Then search again." "My lord." "She humiliated me." His eyes burned with madness. "She belongs to me." Lord Hartwell nervously stepped forward. "Cedric, perhaps." Silence. Even Isabella's father stepped back in fear. Cedric's voice became terrifyingly calm. "Seal the roads. Offer rewards. I want every inn, every village, and every traveler questioned." He smiled coldly. "No matter where she runs. She cannot hide forever." Unaware of the storm gathering behind her, Isabella stepped out of the carriage beside the Briarwood Inn. Rain had finally stopped. But as she looked up, she noticed several riders approaching from the distance. Alexander noticed them too. And the moment he recognized the emblem on their coats, his expression changed completely. Lord Blackwood's men. They had found the trail. And they were heading straight toward the inn. The Duke's unexpected lie. The riders approached through the muddy road with alarming speed. Alexander Whitmore recognized the Blackwood crest immediately. 4 men. Armed. Determined. And clearly searching for someone. "They found me," she whispered. Panic returned to her eyes. "They found me." Alexander looked at her carefully. For the first time since discovering the runaway bride in his carriage, he saw genuine terror. Not embarrassment. Not shame. Fear. The kind of fear that no one could fake. Thomas stepped forward nervously. "Your Grace." Alexander's sharp mind calculated the situation within seconds. If the men searched the inn, they would recognize Isabella immediately. If they reported to Cedric Blackwood, she would be dragged back to Ashcroft. And if Alexander interfered openly, it could create a scandal capable of shaking society itself. He should simply hand the girl over. That would be the easiest solution. The sensible solution. But something inside him refused. Perhaps it was the memory of those tears. Or perhaps it was because he had spent his entire life watching powerful men force their will upon others. Whatever the reason, his decision was made. He turned to Isabella. "Take my arm." She blinked. "What? Now?" The riders were only yards away. Confused, she obeyed. Alexander guided her toward the entrance of the inn. "Smile?" he murmured. "What?" "Smile." "I cannot smile." "Then try." Before she could ask another question, the riders reached them. "Your Grace." Their leader climbed down from his horse and bowed respectfully. Alexander stopped. His expression remained perfectly calm. "What is the meaning of this?" "We apologize for disturbing you, Your Grace," the man replied. "We are searching for Lady Isabella Hartwell." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "Indeed?" "Yes, Your Grace." The man glanced around. "Lord Blackwood has ordered us to question every traveler." Alexander's voice turned cold. "And you intend to question me?" The rider immediately bowed lower. "Never, Your Grace." "Good." The man hesitated. "But perhaps your servants may have seen." "No." The answer was immediate. "None of us have." Beside him, Isabella nearly forgot how to breathe. Alexander Whitmore, the Duke of Ravensshire, had just lied. For her. The rider nodded quickly. "Of course, Your Grace." Then his eyes drifted toward Isabella. "Forgive me, madam, but—" Alexander calmly placed his hand over hers. "My fiancé and I are tired after our journey." The rider froze. "Fiancé?" Isabella almost choked. Thomas nearly fell over. But Alexander's face betrayed nothing. "Surely," the Duke continued, "you are not suggesting that my future wife resembles the woman you seek?" The poor man turned white. "No, Your Grace." "Excellent. Please forgive us." Within moments, the riders rode away. Only after they disappeared did Isabella finally exhale. "You." She stared at him. "You called me your fiancé." Alexander adjusted his gloves. "It was convenient." "You lied." "Yes." "You protected me." "Yes." "Why?" Alexander paused. "An excellent question." "What?" He himself wasn't entirely certain. "I dislike rude interruptions during dinner," he answered. Isabella burst out laughing. Real laughter. And despite himself, Alexander almost smiled again. Almost. Inside Briarwood Inn, whispers spread immediately. People recognized the Duke. And naturally, they assumed Isabella was his intended bride. By morning half the village would know. Thomas followed them upstairs with wide eyes. The moment the door closed he spoke. Your Grace. Alexander removed his coat. Yes. You told those men that she's your fiancée. I am aware. You lied. Yes. Thomas stared. In 20 years, I have never seen you tell a lie. There is a first time for everything. And now the entire inn believes you are engaged. Alexander poured himself a cup of tea. Yes. Your Grace. Thomas lowered his voice. The gossip alone could destroy reputations. Alexander sighed. I know. And Lord Blackwood? Yes. And London society? Yes, Thomas. And newspapers? Yes. And? Yes. Thomas blinked. You seem strangely calm. Alexander looked toward the window. No. His voice was quiet. I assure you I am not calm. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away in Ashcroft, Cedric Blackwood received disturbing news. A witness saw the lady leave the city. Cedric's eyes narrowed. Alone? We do not know. And? One of our men encountered the Duke of Ravensshire tonight. Cedric frowned. Alexander Whitmore? Yes. The servant hesitated. He was traveling with a young woman. Cedric slowly stood. A young woman? Yes, my lord. And? Our men were told she was his fiancée. Silence filled the room. Then Cedric smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. In fact, it terrified everyone present. The Duke of Ravensshire, he whispered. How interesting. He walked toward the fireplace. I wonder. His smile widened. Would society enjoy hearing that England's most respected duke stole another man's bride? Lord Hartwell paled. Cedric surely. Silence. Cedric's eyes gleamed with cruelty. If Alexander Whitmore wishes to involve himself, then I shall make him regret it. Back at Briarwood Inn, Isabella sat quietly by the fireplace. For the first time in weeks she felt safe. Safe. The word itself felt unfamiliar. Alexander sat opposite her, reading documents. Hours passed in comfortable silence. Finally, Isabella spoke. Your Grace. Yes. Thank you. He looked up. For what? For believing me. Alexander remained silent. Then he answered softly. I did not say I believed you. Her smile faded slightly. But I do believe this. His gray eyes met hers. No woman should live in fear. Something in his voice made her wonder. Not because of what he had said, but because it sounded personal. As though he understood fear better than anyone. And as Alexander returned to his papers, Isabella noticed something she had missed before. A small portrait rested inside his pocket watch. A portrait of a beautiful young woman. And the sadness that crossed the Duke's face when he looked at it was the sadness of a man whose heart had once been broken. She didn't know her name. She didn't know her story. But for the first time, Isabella realized that Alexander Whitmore carried wounds of his own. And neither of them knew that their greatest danger wasn't Cedric Blackwood. Because far away in London, a shocking letter had already reached the Queen's court. And by sunrise, the entire country would begin talking about the mysterious woman traveling with the Duke of Ravensshire.